TIMA6211 PoE 2020. Your deadline is 23 June at 9 o'clock in the evening. Please take note of this so that we do not have any late submissions. All the ICE tasks that I will set for you during this semester will also have a deadline of 9 o'clock in the evening so that we get used to this submission deadline. Our aim is to not have any late submissions this semester. So let's do that. General guidelines for your PoE. As for any other PoE, you're going to do some research and planning before you start. So please go and have a look at your PoE, which I have also uploaded for you under the folder module guide and PoE on more resources on VC Learn. Please make use of the IIE Quick Reference Guideline, which I have also uploaded for you in that same folder so that you make use of proper referencing. There's also an article about academic writing, organizing your social science research paper, the academic writing style, which is applicable to most of your other PoEs as well. Not necessarily for your languages, but for your other subjects or modules, you can use this academic writing. I have also made a slideshow, which I have also copied into this activity for you, and I will show you later on so that you have it all together for this academic essay that you're going to write in activity 1. Then at the end of your PoE, after both activities, you provide one reference list. Please remember that the sources should be in alphabetical order. Please indicate your word count for activity 1. This is very important, people. You've got a word count of 1,000 words and you have to adhere to that. We allow 10% above and below, so anything from 900 words to 1,100. If it's too long, you better get rid of all the fluff, delete all the unnecessary sentences or words, make one word for a few words. If you have repeated yourself, delete those sections to adhere to the word count. Before you submit your PoE, please export your Word document to a PDF before you submit. Name it as follows. Start with your student number, then your name and surname, a comma, and then your TIMA6211 PoE. Please also make sure that you submit into the correct submission link for the correct module. Please submit before the deadline. Submissions after the deadline will not be marked. Submit your PoE through Safe Assign on VC Learn. The format of this PoE, as for any other PoE in your second year through to the 4th year from now on, you need to have a cover page. On the cover page, you will indicate your student number, your name and surname, as well as the title of the PoE, which will in this case be TIMA6211. Then you would have a content or index page with headings, subheadings, and the page numbers. Very important. Then you start with your first activity. All right, so please, we are not going to mark any PoEs or ICE tasks, for that matter, without a cover page and a content page. So please make a template for yourself so that you know that you use it for every single ICE task and every single PoE that you are going to submit this year. Please type your PoE in Arial or Calibri, 12 font, justified, line spacing 1.5 centimeters. Have headings, subheadings, numbering, and a reference list. I'm going to talk about the numbering and the headings later on in this workshop. Please export your to a PDF document before you submit. Very important. Other important things to keep in mind: do not only use Kellen as a source. please use some other credible resources. And very important, do not only use blogs, please use some other credible resources, especially if you want to reason with someone. You need to make use of credible resources. Think creatively, integrate your theory with practical knowledge, where you show enthusiasm and where you provide creative and engaging suggestions that would positively enhance teaching. Activity 1 of our PoE TIMA6211 is about knowledge of content. Our context for this activity: South African teachers in public and a few private schools are to teach using the CAPS document to ensure that they cover the correct content at the correct time. You, as an experienced teacher, have a much newer teacher, Mr. Smith, asking you for advice. He has been teaching grade 4 math for 2 years, and school management has now moved him to grade 6 mathematics. You need to assist him in the following way. You need to advise Mr. Smith in the part 1 of your PoE on how the requirements of grade 4 patterns, functions, and algebra, as opposed to grade 6 patterns, functions, and algebra, differ. For this part, you are going to refer to section 2 of the CAPS document. In the second part of this PoE activity 1, you are going to highlight to Mr. Smith the areas of conceptual progression in the area patterns, functions, and algebra, and describe how the conceptual complexity increases, meaning how is grade 6 more difficult than grade 4. Use examples to make your points clearer. Very, very important that you use examples. Then in the third part of this activity 1, you need to encourage Mr. Smith to make more of an effort to use ICT in the classroom by giving him convincing reasons and practical suggestions. Your submission should be typed in size 12 font, 1.5 centimeter line spacing, and Calibri or Arial font with normal margins, and it should be about 2.5 pages in length or 1,000 words. This is the instructions of your PoE document. So to adhere to this 1,000 words, I have indicated in the rest of your of this workshop how many words more or less for each section. So let's unpack this rubric and also see what is where. So for the first part of our activity 1, you need to explain how the requirements of grade 4 differ from grade 6 in the content area patterns, functions, and algebra. For this, you are going to refer to section 2 of the CAPS document, where they give you a phase overview of this content area, and we would see grade 4, 5, and 6 next to each other on one page, and I will refer to that later on. Let's just look at the excellent level of achievement to earn 12 to 15 marks. For this first part, you would see it counts 15 marks. You would need to describe how the requirements of grade 4 patterns, functions, and algebra differ from the requirements of grade 6 patterns, functions, and algebra, with extensive reference to the CAPS document. How do we reference the CAPS document in text? Department of Basic Education, 2011, or DOBE, 2011. That's the correct way to in-text reference the CAPS document. Because you are going to make use of this CAPS document throughout your academic essay, you need to use the proper way of in-text referencing. Right, so that is for 15 marks, and you use section 2. Then you need to describe the conceptual progression of this content area patterns, functions, and algebra, meaning how is grade 6 more difficult than grade 4? For this, you would need section 3 of the CAPS document. And if you remember, we have done this in class last week, where I have given you the page numbers of where each of the topics are highlighted in the CAPS document section 3, where the teaching guidelines are given, the different pages that I've given on that the content area. So part 2 also weighs 15 marks. To earn 12 to 15 marks, the discussion of conceptual complexity and its progression is thorough and clearly illustrate exactly how the complexity increases. The implications for teaching and learning are discussed through examples, which effectively illustrate the development of conceptual complexity. And if you recall, I said to you that you can use the examples in the CAPS document, and then you have to in-text reference the CAPS document. You can also substitute it with your own examples or own numbers, and you can make use of the different grades, grade 4, 5, and 6, the Department of Education textbooks, PDFs, which I have uploaded for you under resources on VC Learn. So you have a lot of examples to clearly illustrate the complexity of the progression in this content area. Then the third part of this activity, you will see, counts 20 marks, where you have to explain to Mr. Smith why it is so important to use technology in the classroom, incorporating ICT, so making use of technology in our math classroom. We will still do this during our module in the semester, so I will then clearly indicate to you where to look for sources. We will also use a few tech apps that you can also use in your PoE and one day in your class. So the first part of part 3 is your reasoning on the advantages of incorporating ICT into lessons. So for this, you would need to use to make use of credible resources, where you show a thorough understanding of the advantages of incorporating ICT in the classroom, and where you have provided a very convincing argument as to why Mr. Smith should consider using technology in his math class. And then in the second part of this part 3, you should give practical suggestions for implementing ICT in the classroom. So to earn 8 to 10 marks, creative and engaging suggestions have been provided that would positively enhance Mr. Smith's current teaching. So you would also see we make use of technology in our classroom because we want to enhance our teaching and learning. This activity counts 50 marks. The components of your essay would be your title, which will be Activity 1, Knowledge of Content. Then you would have an introduction, which will be 1 paragraph with an interesting sentence to state the topic and to explain the order of your planning. Then in the body of your essay, you would have different headings, which I will explain to you now. And each heading or each paragraph has one main idea with supporting sentences. The last sentence of a paragraph should link with the next paragraph for a logically organized flow of ideas. Then at the end of your essay, you would have a conclusion to summarize and to end off with a strong statement. Then at the end of your PoE, after both activities of this PoE, you will have your reference list, where you would order your sources alphabetically. So let's look at the format of this activity. 1.1 heading would be Introduction. Here you would briefly state in a few short sentences what the essay will discuss and the format it will take. Then 1.2 would have the heading Requirements of Grade 4 versus Grade 6 Patterns, Functions and Algebra. This is part 1 of your essay, which counts 15 marks. And if you work this out, 15 marks divided by 50 marks multiplied by 1,000 words gives you more or less 300 words for this first section, for this first part, where you would refer to section 2 of the CAPS document. Very important, make reference to the CAPS document. Because where do you get this information? In section 2 of the CAPS, so you need to reference the CAPS document. Then the third part, or the third heading of this essay would be conceptual progression and increasing complexity, which would actually be the second part of your rubric or your essay, which will be 15 marks. And if we work it out, it's also more or less 300 words. You can go over a bit, but not more than 350 words for this section, where you would refer to section 3 of the CAPS document. All right, so just a note on this, on the words. If you have described all the requirements and how it differs in this section of the PoE, and you want to make use of about 70 words to add it onto this section, it is fine. This is just a more or less indication so that you do not go over the word count, if you get my drift. All right, so in the second part, you illustrate exactly how the complexity increases. Discuss the implication for teaching and learning through examples, very important, which effectively illustrate the development of conceptual complexity. In other words, with these examples, I want to see how is grade 6 more difficult than grade 4. Remember in class, I have given you the pages in section 3 for the different topics that you could use for this part of your essay. Then part 3. Remember, it counts 20 marks, so it's more or less 400 words. So this part, please do not forget about this part of your essay. In the past, I had students who really only have given me 1 or 2 sentences, and then I cannot give you 20 marks for those 1 or 2 sentences. So this is a very important part of your activity 1 for this PoE, where you have to give Mr. Smith advice on why he should use ICT technology in the classroom and practical suggestions. So start by giving a short definition of ICT and how it is used in lessons, and then go on to describing the advantages of incorporating ICT in the classroom and argue why teachers should consider using ICT in the classroom. And then make practical suggestions and give examples for implementing ICT in the classroom. Give suitable reasons as to how it would positively assist in the development of pedagogical efficiency. Then in your conclusion, you summarize your thoughts in a short paragraph, and please adhere to the word count. Like I said before, if you are over the word count, please edit your essay. Make sure that you haven't repeated yourself. Get rid of fluff. That is where you have explained and over-explained an example. Be concise, be precise, be logical, but give it in short statements so that you do not fluff up all the, your whole essay. That means don't over-explain or over-elaborate on your essay, on one idea. Right, so just to get back to our content area, patterns, functions, and algebra, you would remember that I did this in class. It comprises of 3 topics: numeric patterns, numeric patterns, and number sentences. And you should address all 3 of these topics in the requirements as well as in the conceptual progression. So if we look at section 2 of our CAPS document, the specific content, the phase overview, here is where you see the table where they compare the requirements of the grade 4, 5, and 6 to each other. So you are going to focus on grade 4 and grade 6. So for part 1, where you have to indicate how the requirements differ for these 2 grades, you are going to use this section and you are indicate where are the differences. Here I see a difference, there I see a difference, here I see a difference. And if you do not see a difference here, you look in this 3rd section and you indicate how it would differ, especially when you refer to this first sentence. The main progression in patterns, functions, and algebra occurs in the range and complexity of relationships between numbers in the patterns. Right, so read this paragraph, read this column, explain the differences in your own words. You cannot copy this in part 1. Please, you have to explain your understanding of the requirements in your own words. Surely you are going to use these words: investigate and extend patterns. And you are going to use input and output values. Yes, you are going to use those words, but you need to explain to me in your understanding how it differs. By looking at these columns, and if it's not clear, you refer to the pages that I have given you, the page numbers that I've given you in class, to help you to understand how it differs. If you look, this is for the first topic, numeric patterns. There it goes on numeric patterns because it's also equivalent forms. So please see if you can find differences. If you do not find it here, look in the section 3 and also refer to this first sentence or this first paragraph here to see how it differs. Topic geometric patterns, the same way. You're going to explain the differences between grade 6 and grade 4 in the requirements, and then for number sentences as well. Explain how it's going to differ by referring to the complexity of relationships between numbers in the patterns. Then in your 3rd part, you are going to explain the progression in the intermediate phase, especially from grade 4 to grade 6. How and where are you going to find it in section 3 of the maths curriculum? And this is for part 2 for 15 marks, more or less 300 words with examples. Examples, people, very important. And the page numbers that I have given in class. Here is the section on academic writing that I was referring to. So you can go through these slides in your own time. Please read through this. Very important for all your other POEs as well. So go through this. Make sure that you understand how to edit your essay. Please, no spelling mistakes, no grammar mistakes. You've got a spell checker, on your computer. So please make use of it. Do a word count. Please indicate your word count and check your reference list against the IIE Quick Reference Guide and make sure that you give your proper referencing. Here's a section on how to improve your writing. You can go through these slides as well. And then there's also just some pointers on how to refine your Google search if you want to use some of these operators, and the prompt checklist, please make use of that. Here's an example of the reference list. Here is the proper reference of the CAPS document. Please make sure that you use the proper referencing here, sorry. Remember, reference list at the end of your PoE. I would quickly like to share the PoE TIMA document. Where is it now? I haven't uploaded it. There is the first page of our TIMA document, PoE document, sorry. Page 2 of this document is very, very important. Please familiarize yourself with the referencing rubric that the markers are using to mark your PoE. Minor errors, this is how we mark it. We go down in this column. And major errors, so for minor errors, we deduct up to 5%, and for major errors, up to 10%. So please, people, you have to read through these columns. It's not a lot of reading, but please make sure that you know exactly what is going on in this referencing rubric, right? So please make sure that you go through this. I would like to ask if there's anyone that would need a workshop on referencing.